And hello, Hearts of Oak. Thanks so much for joining us. And we're with our Israeli war correspondent. I think Brad of London ends up being that. Brad, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me on again. Yes, I join you here from the air, the bunker in the air. You know, one of these. I'm on the 7th floor and I'm in a bomb shelter. And in fact, I'm going to do this right now because I'm going to open the window, which will improve the lighting situation, and you'll understand. Okay. That's a little better.
That sounds like
so. That's impressive... a steel. That's a 1 centimeter thick steel shutter.
Wow.
That blocks that window.
Wow. Okay, you're in the middle of. I think the last time you came on, Israel had fired some rockets at Iran, and then Iran had responded with some rockets and drones, and then it was like, right, we've done the business now, thank you. We've shown we all have military hardware, and we can agree now to not do that again. That kind of where, and how was that? How long was that? Was that 6 months ago?
Last year in October, was the last one, and I think in February, like it's 600 and something days since October the 7th. Year and just under 2 years. It's rolling. It's hard to sort of remember the points at which different things happen. But yeah, we've had 2 main Iranian missile attacks. And we've had, at the beginning, the tempo was at the very beginning, we had oodles of Hamas rockets. But by the time, that there weren't that many that were reaching where I was, but enough to send us into the bomb shelters often. But already back in October, when we got hit by sort of the proper missiles, that they're really big. And, one landed out that window and about 1.5 kilometers away from me. And then last night, there were 3 impacts, 2 major, one in Bnei Brak, which again, it's a suburb of, you'd call it a suburb of Tel Aviv. It's 3 or 4 kilometers from me, and another one in a place called Petach Tikva. And the Petach Tikva one, actually, that hit the building. There are 4 buildings in this complex, and it hit the building that my brother and sister-in-law live in. So they were evacuated at 4 a.m. They're on a high floor, so they had to wait for the Home Front Command to come and get them out of their apartment because they were in their safe room. Their apartment's apparently a bit of a mess, and unfortunately, people died in what it looks like the missile was a direct hit on a safe room, and these safe rooms, they massively decrease your chance of getting injured in all but a direct hit. It's not a bomb-proof shelter. It's not like being 4 stories underground like Nasrallah was, but it dramatically improves your chances, and that's what we live with now. And the other thing that's they've kind of refined things now. Now we get about a half-hour warning that there might be an alarm. So, that actually happened twice last night, just around midnight or so. We got this warning, but then we got no alarms. And it turns out that we managed to blow up the launchers, I think, before they launched. And then at 3 something in the morning, we got another warning. And then we got the alarms, and, my family, we all come into this room, there's 4 of us. We closed the door, and 30 seconds later, Bnei Brak was hit and Petach Tikva was hit. And we feel it. I mean, you feel these hits, 3 kilometers, 7 kilometers, you feel them. So that's it. That's the downside of taking care of not letting them get a nuclear bomb, because I don't know anybody here who thinks that if they didn't that if they had one, they wouldn't use it. We're not talking with rational. We're not dealing with what we call rational on the other side.
Exactly. So 7th of October, 20 months in now, after that horrendous attack with 1,100 people killed by Hamas going through into the wedding. So, but then you've got the attack. Israel attacked, and Israel are talking to my older boy about this and discussing the difference between Israel and how it responds to Hamas or Iran. And Israel plan things, they plot things. What you see is never a knee-jerk reaction. It's kind of step by step, where some of the other countries around seem to respond indiscriminately and without thinking. That's my assessment. But so you've got Israel trying to destroy, obliterate Hamas, degraded hugely Hezbollah in the north. And then 20 months in, it decides that actually it has to do something about Iran, and goes and attacks Iran. So Israel are now they're still in Gaza. They're still fighting Hamas. Hezbollah seem to be degraded and don't seem to be the threat they were at the moment, but obviously they were a proxy for Iran. Where does that leave Israel currently, 20 months into a war on numerous fronts? Without going deep into the Iran side, but how does that leave Israel as a nation in terms of your army, in terms of morale? Yeah.
Let's look. You can say that it's 20 months into a war, or you can say that we've never stopped fighting the war to exist. And we can date that to 77 years, or we can date it to 2,000 years since the Romans took us out of here. These sort of artificial lines, like, are Jews going to exist in Israel? My firm belief is yes. We're home now for 77 years. We've been self-sovereign here. We never really left. There's always been Jews living in the Holy Land. Even in the consular reports you can go look up in the Library of Congress, 200,000 souls living here, of which 40,000 at least were Jewish. Jews are here, and we're not going anywhere. Now, how do we stay here? And it's quite clear that there's forces that don't want us living here. My personal, I've been on the Islam thing for years, so I've read the Quran. I understand the ideology, whether it's Shia, whether it's Sunni, it doesn't really matter. Their eschatology is different. Their end of days stories are the main difference. But to me, both of them, and Hamas is largely a Sunni organization. Iran is a Shia thing. Hezbollah is Shia. What difference does it make at the end of the day? It just, the methods and means by which they kill you are not that different.
They're all Mohammedans.
They're all Mohammedans, as Churchill would have written. Churchill did write. That's what he called them in the River War. And so, is this war today, October the 7th? When and once we went to war against Hamas properly, and obviously had to go to war against Hezbollah because they joined, and then the Houthis, and then Iran directly, it was just a matter of time. We have to do this. We cannot leave as it was. Now, it's obvious that they had been planning some kind of coordinated strike with Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran. Maybe they wanted to do it after they had one or more functioning nuclear weapons. Not always to use them as the first thing, but as soon as they have a weapon like that, as soon as you even think that they have a weapon like that, all of your calculations of what you can do change. they're throwing all of these missiles at us, hopefully declining numbers. I think we degraded them massively. That first night, it was Thursday night into Friday morning. And the way, again, Israel keeps doing new stuff to its population. We got a bizarre, all our phones are hooked up to this emergency broadcast system, which actually is the same emergency broadcast system that they have in America. And it's actually now a feature of the iPhone and the Google phones that they're tapping into. And when they hit the button to go, it doesn't matter whether your phone is off. I think off, it even wakes up. Whether it's in silent mode or sleep mode or the little switch on, it doesn't matter. It just bursts through with a horrible noise and tells you, get up. And then they accompanied it with the full-on air raid sirens, which we always hear anyway. And it said, something's happening in Iran. Be aware, try and be as close to a protected space as possible. And then nothing else. Then, because Iran didn't shoot back on that first shot, and that we find out now is because of the decapitation strike, and it was in two parts. It was, we got their like general staff, this guy Salami, who the head of the IRGC. I mean, it's unbelievable that the level at which we started, and then apparently what had happened was we had done things with our Air Force. And we had so thoroughly infiltrated them that we knew what their reaction of all of the heads of their air defense system and their missile counter-firing system. We had a good idea where they would go. And instead of having a Zoom meeting like they should have done, they all went to one place and boom. So they all went in the first half an hour or so. And then so it took them a day or so to start launching the kind of retaliation. And up to apparently last night was a heavier, again, maybe I think I read 90 projectiles, of which 9 got through. So we're still running at 90% being properly stopped outside the atmosphere, I would say, which is amazing. But it's terrifying when it hits, your family's home and kills people. But we knew that they were going to do this, and it is very largely indiscriminate. It's obvious that they do not have significantly useful targeting ability. They can't aim at the ministry, everybody, in America or whatever on the internet, I see them say, oh, yeah, the Ministry of Defense is right in the middle of residential areas. And the thing is that the Ministry of Defense, which is the only government ministry that isn't in Jerusalem, that's been there since pretty much the beginning of Tel Aviv. Well, Tel Aviv, there was nothing around it when it was built. And Tel Aviv was one road and the beach. It was Rothschild, and then it's grown, and now Tel Aviv's a very expensive city to live in, and of course the area around this this defense ministry is very sought after. It's right in the center of town. It's hugely expensive, but it's got the defense ministry there. But even it's obvious, when you know your geography and when you kind of see where these things land, they can't get within 800 meters of anything they aim at. The circle of uncertainty is 1.5 kilometers or something on these missiles. So anytime they point a missile at Israel, it's indiscriminate. They're not like us, and that's why. And then, to move on to another subject, I see online all of these people, the sort of the Jew hate contingent, and they put there's one picture from one of the buildings where we assassinated someone, and it looks literally like we sent something through the wall, or probably into the bathroom or something. The guy's on the toilet, and it's just this beautiful little hole in the wall, and it almost looks like a dragonfly just. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, I keep up to date with weapons and so forth, but some of this stuff is just Star Wars to me. And then they compare that with what Gaza looks like, and Gaza's, of course, rubbleized. Not completely. You don't see the bits that aren't rubbleized. And they say, why couldn't you do this in Gaza? Well, we did. We did try, but then everything was built under a hospital or a school or a mosque or everything, absolutely everything. The whole place it's the most heavily militarized place on earth. Colonel Spencer says, and I agree. I agree. Whereas Iran is still a proper country, and they were behaving more like a proper state. Their military stuff is separated from their people. In fact, even to the degree that some of these tall buildings where we took out penthouses, apparently everybody living in that building is working for the IRGC. Obviously, their families are there, so you don't flatten the whole building, but you try. We're trying all the time to be the best we can be.
To the IRGC, the Islamic Republic
Republican Guards
Corps, which was started. Well, the clue is in the name, Islamic, but that was started after the revolution, around the Islamic Revolution in '79, as a kind of superior part of the.
It's their Praetorian Guard. It's there. It's the elites that run the place.
But tell me how, because it really, when I talk to people and they talk about Israel controlling the world and Zionist stuff, and I mean, my reaction is no. Actually, I think it's just jealousy. I think it's jealousy of a country being able to do what it does, because Israel's fighting a war against Hamas, which is embedded in a city. That's one type of warfare, urban warfare, that the world doesn't really understand. Only Israel understands that. Then you got Hezbollah, which are like a militia group, but embedded in the government in the north. And we've seen the attacks directly into Beirut. And then you're fighting an actual kind of properish country. So it's completely different on that side. They're not embedded. So there's three different spheres of battles happening, all different planning.
And the Houthis.
And
1,500 kilometers away. I mean, listen, up until Friday night, we were having 2 or 3 or 4 missile attacks a week. And that has the same level of disruption, even though they send one missile. It's the same alarm. We have to go in the room, wait 20 minutes, and all of this crap. It's not inconsiderable, and we've been fortunate in that it's done almost no damage. I think one of the Houthi missiles landed on of course, Arab Palestinian Arabs in near Hebron and hurt some children, but it's the same. It's the same thing. This is just more of it. Yeah, we're fighting all these different styles of war, and we're fighting to we genuinely feel that we are fighting to survive. We genuinely believe that every battle would be the last one if we lost, and that tells you why we win. Okay, we win because we have no choice but to win. We cannot lose because we know that a loss to the style of force that Hamas put into the country on October the 7th, a loss would be a catastrophic slaughter of everybody. So we know we can't stop that. Now, Iran isn't going to land invade us. That's a different thing. And they set themselves up only with this missiles and drone. In fact, just as I came on now, there were active alerts. They were chasing a drone around Caesarea, is what we call it, Caesarea. Don't ask how the spelling works on that. It's the craziest thing. Anyway, Caesarea, which is also known because it's the only golf course in Israel. And believe me, if Jews run the world, why do we only have one bloody golf course in this country? It's crazy, which is why, of course, we need the Trump plan. They were chasing a drone around Caesarea, and just as I closed the door here, my wife shouted at me that they've found it and shot it down, probably with a helicopter on the beach. So, and the reason it's there for sure is because Bibi's weekend house is in Caesarea. They have already hit it once. Hezbollah hit it, and Sarah was very, very upset about that. But I suspect they're trying to get something to land there. Yeah. Look, we are fighting for. We firmly believe that we're fighting for survival. When we send our kids, and my kid's going to go next year to the army, or he'll defer and do some academic thing and do something clever with cyber robotic stuff. We know what we're doing, and I mean, the toll in Gaza, again, this never gets talked of. It's the genocide, the so-called genocide in Gaza. We lose soldiers it's horrible. You wake up and there's two more faces or whatever. And it's a heavy toll on society because it reaches us all, but we don't see another way to stop these people. We just don't. If we did, and all of this stuff about negotiations, I'm much more jaded than most because of my knowledge and background in counter jihad, and I've been doing this since 2000, really since 2001, properly since 2003 or 4. And nothing has happened to make me think, not the Abraham Accords, nothing, not the vast improvement in conditions in the UAE, for example. I still don't trust it. I still know that at any moment it can go bad. It's all a matter of one despot away. And look, Syria, I mean, they issued a statement saying that we're free to use their airspace to attack Iran. It's like, yeah, you didn't really have a choice on that. It's like you're just stating an obvious fact.
Because really the goal of this with Iran really has to be regime change. And Iran was a very different country prior to 79. Of course, Iran, the Persian Empire, the Persians had a long, illustrious history. But you do want, really, the world wants a change of leadership, and then therefore a country that doesn't want to destroy Israel and piss everyone off, because Iran has its tentacles like few other countries. I mean, Turkey or Saudi, or they're all issues, but it's Iran that seems to have its tentacles in our countries around. But obviously the work Israel did with Hezbollah meant that they didn't have that army on the ground next door to Israel. But yeah, everyone wants regime change, I guess, in Iran, but no one wants to do what has to be done, apart from Trump kind of giving a green light to this.
Look, the problem is, what everybody thinks of when they think of regime change is Afghanistan and Iraq, which were disasters. They were disasters, but why were they disasters? I would contend that they were disasters because the people who set out to do them, Bush and let's not say neocons, but they came at it, and I remember distinctly. I was involved. I think it was 2005, and I went to one of the events organized by the David Horowitz Freedom Center, who David Horowitz passed away quite recently. Great man, and he did a lot of this. He was a former lefty, very lefty, child of communist parents, and he became a stalwart of the right, but Islamically aware. He's backed Robert Spencer and all these people. I went to one of these events, and at the event was Natan Sharansky. And Natan Sharansky was a dissident from the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union collapsed in 1989. And Natan Sharansky came out. He was Jewish. Came to Israel. For a long time here, he was the diaspora affairs minister. But he wrote a book, and I think it's called The Case for Democracy. And it talks all about fear societies and free societies and the difference between them, and how you try and transfer the ideals of freedom into a fear society. And it was basically his book about how the Soviet Union fell. And it was a great book. And I think Bush read it, and he said, "We'll go do this in Iraq." Oh, God. And it completely misses the point that Islam as a way of organizing a society, it's not going to suddenly flip and be a democracy and nice and shiny and everybody's going to. No, this is not how they're wired. It would take generations and generations and a change in the underlying operating system by which you educate your people. Now, Iran is a really interesting case because it's Iran. I see them all like Turkey. I've used this analogy for years. Islam to me is a bungee cord. It's a bungee cord that ties you to the 7th century, and you can tie yourself up with this bungee cord, and you can run and run and run. You know, like that horizontal bungee cord thing you get. And you run and run and run, you get as far away from the 7th century as you can, and then something happens and bang, you snap back straight to the 7th century. And Iran, with the Shah, and Turkey, pre-Erdogan, these places were all stretching the bungee cord. And then ISIS comes along and Syria, something happens, the bungee cord snaps back, Islam is Islam, and you get back into the 7th century version of it, and you get Hamas doing Muhammad raids. That's Islam. Now that's not to say you can't make a society with it, like UAE seems to be managing. Saudi is on a hell of a interesting trajectory, with women driving and all that stuff.
Revolution. Yes, let
Revolution.
them
I know, but that's not to say it can't happen, but it isn't going to happen by the means that worked in London in the 17th, 18th, and hundreds, and that led to women's suffrage, which Churchill's wife and he argued over whether women should be voting. I mean, that's literally, we're not that further along, and we're but our operating system is the Jewish operating system. Christianity adopts almost entirely Judaism. The ideology, the way of thinking, the rule book by which we live of Jews and Christians is very similar. We disagree over pork, but it's an irrelevant disagreement. And in fact, you're free to follow our rules of kosher, and we won't impose them upon anybody, as far as I know. Even if you find the right hotels, you can get bacon in Israel. So there you go. But trying to do that in Islam doesn't work.
It doesn't, no. I want to ask you about the military side, but this curious issue of Israel, I'm sure we've talked about it before, of having the religion and the culture. If you look at Christianity, kind of you have the religious belief, the faith. Culture doesn't really come into it, but with Israel, you've got these two together, and it's been interesting. Israel, with the modern day Israel, it's a state that it seems to be less based on the religious part of Judaism and more on the culture. You've got Tel Aviv being a very liberal city. How does that kind of work? And I guess with the Christian right, how does that work as well?
Well, here's the thing: is that I think that you in your Christian countries, I think you've so thoroughly absorbed Christianity that you've forgotten it's there. And what I mean by that is everything that makes your society work when it works and fails when it's missing is from your Christian roots. The code of ethics that you live by, and this humanist nonsense that they could have invented this stuff without the Bible, without the Jewish Torah, without the Hebrew Bible. No society has ever abolished slavery, or very few every society has had slavery. What's the unusual act? Abolishing slavery. How did it come to be abolished? Britain. I've used this example, I think, even with you before. Britain used its massive wealth and power to go around the world making slavery not a thing. The act of slavery is not unusual. Cultures have slavery. Everybody does it. The act of abolishing slavery is the defining act of the West, if you want my opinion. Judaism, how did we get rid of slavery? Well, firstly, we never had an empire, so it wasn't really obvious. But what happens is, because slavery is detail, the details of how to have slaves are in the Bible. How to treat them, it's there in the Bible. But then later in Talmud, which is just basically legal arguments going through thousands of years of interpreting the Torah, what happened was the sages and the rabbis started coming up with so many issues with slavery, because it contradicted this all men are created equal in the eyes of God. They just started imposing rules upon how you would treat your slaves, and it just became so onerous to own slaves. It was just easier to do it a more honest way and pay people for labor. And that went into Christianity, and eventually, with blips, so you've got the South African Dutch Reformed Church for a while that thinks that they're fine with separating blacks and whites. But eventually they come around, because it's just not Christian. You just can't treat people differently because of an inalienable characteristic. So in Israel, yeah, we've got cultural clashes. We've got culture wars going on here all the time. What in America they call the war on Christmas. Well, we've got a war on Shabbat. Now, what that means is, the union that controls the people who work doing construction for the light rail in Tel Aviv, they won't let the rabbis won't let them work on the light rail on the weekends. The buses don't run on the weekends. And believe me, this is a huge bone of contention, a huge fight in Tel Aviv. We have arguments over public prayer on Yom Kippur in the town square, because the lefties sort of think that it's the end of the world. And even now, some of the people who are secular and on the right are realizing, actually, no, we want to be Jewish and be overtly. We have all of this. We have arguments over the level of kashrut that the army needs to be. We have massive arguments over the exemption for the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, which when there were 50,000, it didn't matter. But now there's hundreds of thousands, and we need every soldier we can get. We have those fights, but we have them here in Israel. They're not. They don't bother you. We don't have them in Golders Green. We don't have them outside, because this is the correct venue for Jews to haggle over how Jewish we can be. It's like, that's it. That's what we do.
Tell me, I want to go back to the military side after taking that detour. I want to, because Israel, spend a huge amount on military as a percentage, but really as an amount, it's not maybe $25 billion or something like that. It's insignificant, really, in compared to what some other countries spend. But of course, Israel have had an ability to come up with ingenious technologies. But the other side is, of course, America being there, not supporting Israel from 48, coming in much later, maybe in
after
the 70s.
67. Yeah.
So is America's support, when people say, "Oh, Israel exists because of America," no. America is a much later connection or relationship to Israel, and not
France.
48.
France supported us much more before America was on the scene. We were flying French jets. The 1967 success with the Six-Day War, taking out the Arab armies on the ground, that was mirages. And some old stuff that we had knocking around. Yeah, look, Uncle Sam, and of course this mythical, this massive aid that we get. It is mostly, nearly all, gift vouchers to spend in the industrial military complex of America. It is a gigantic subsidy to the American defense industries, Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, all of the best names. It's a giant subsidy to them, to rival the subsidies that the Europeans give to Airbus and all of the other European arms. And it's a massive war of subsidies. That's how they subsidize their arms industry. And what they do is they tell you can have $10 billion, and what it is gift vouchers. You have to. I mean, I even tangentially, we had a customer sold computers, and an Israeli company that was eligible for some military aid, and they had to buy computers, and so it was better for them to buy the computers in America, even though they were Lenovo's made in Taiwan, and they were buying them in from. It was nonsense. It was just money circulation. But yeah, of course, that's why we've got F-35s, and that's why we've got F-16s and F-15s, and we are buying bombs.
Your F, I mean, your F-15 still flying, but your F-15s, how you've developed them, are phenomenal aircraft. I think you ordered a whole batch of them just last year, so they're still being used. Yeah.
They're they're the backbone. In fact, the F-35 is a very interesting thing, and I think everybody laughs at it, and it gets terrible press, but nobody here complains about them and the job that they do. And I'm sure, and again, this is stuff that just never comes out properly, but I'm sure that the opening salvos of what just happened in Iran were all down to F-35 stealth capabilities, because it's not like Hamas or Hezbollah. Iran had state of the art, as far as we know, the best air defense systems other than Russia, I would have thought. They didn't get a shot out. They did not get a shot out. One of the things that we asked Biden for help with the last time we attacked Iran, which he said no, was mid-air refueling. But the thing he said yes to was all around the air bases in the Gulf would be on standby to rescue pilots if we lost pilots. And again, for sure, the Americans were on standby. So if you're looking for a place where American lives were at risk because of Israel, it will be some flight crews who were on standby to go rescue some Israeli pilots if they got shot down. Nobody got shot down. No planes got down. The Iranians can make as many AI pictures of gigantic F-35s with little tiny swarmy people around them. Look up that picture. It's brilliant. They can make all those AI images they like and videos and show bits from video game, but no, they didn't shoot. We count all our planes quite carefully, and the correct number are in the hangars. It's the aid we get from America. It is obviously fantastic, but it's also been a poison chalice, and we know that now because of the experience with Biden, with Biden up until January this year. Obama made us sign a deal that includes in it an exclusivity. We are not allowed to go and develop or manufacture our own weapons. We can't make, and I think now we're in breach, probably, because I know we are making shells, we're making our own bombs, and we're going to be much more self-sufficient going forward, which is good. And all the weapons we've ever bought from America, we've bought them, taken them apart, put them back together again better, and then told the Americans how to do the same. Yeah. Everything. And like Iron Dome is a classic example. Iron Dome it's not the missile that's so clever. It's not the radar that's so clever. It's the package. It's the integration. It's the threat assessment. It's when Hamas fires a rocket and 3 seconds after it appears on the horizon, you decide where it's going, if it's worth intercepting, which batch of your 5 different interceptors is closest, how many missiles do you want to send to intercept one rocket, depending on its value. All of this happens in 4 or 5 seconds. And it's autonomous. It happens that, there is a human in the loop, but the humans are they have to stop things rather than start things, because there's no time to press the start button in that game. That level of that, and that was done by a kind of a startup nation team of small teams, software developers. It's the same teams that make games, the same teams that make the stupid social media advertising systems, but they do that too. And we're agile. We're little, we're agile. And so we're better at it. I think we're just better at it. And to a certain extent, the aid through the 80s and so on, it suppressed our natural. We were all set to build an aircraft called the Levi, and it got cancelled when we bought the F-15s. And a lot of people to this day are upset that we never built our own fighter aircraft. I don't know how practical that is today, but we want to be self-sufficient. We do not want to be dependent. We don't want to be seen to be dependent, and we are less dependent. And we've never had foreign fighters come and put boots on the ground here. Okay, we've probably got 50 Americans manning THAAD terminal high altitude missile batteries right now, which work alongside our Arrow and Arrow 2 and 3. The embassy staff are just as much at risk as they are. They're no more at risk than me. In fact, they're less at risk. We don't want people to fight our wars. Our children will go fight our wars. We're comfortable with that. But what we don't want is when we do actually have a real proper shooting war with Hezbollah, that we have to beg and cajole an arsehole, or the arseholes behind Biden, whoever it was, to send us a 2,000-pound bomb, or say, or double check. If we want to drop 93 2,000-pound bombs on a bunker in Beirut to kill Nasrallah, we don't want to have to ask permission, and we shouldn't ask permission because it's our war.
You take these and you reverse engineer them like no one else does, and that's one of the reasons of the success. But I think was it Iraq got F-14s, I think, and then the US cut off all supplies to them, so they have to cannibalize a few of them. But and the danger is, I guess, if you rely on another country, and Israel is a very small country, you rely on another country to purchase, you rely on another country to support, to continue upgrading for the equipment. And if that changes, so the relationship with America is interesting because you mentioned France, but now that doesn't happen. So there are only a few countries, and you don't want to be sold something and then be told, right, you're not allowed to actually use it on anyone. Well, what's the point of having a weapon if you can't use it? So where does that leave Israel?
Oh, just now before I came on, I saw so the big arms bazaar is happening in Paris right now, and the best. Sorry, Donald, because I loved his message the other day after we bombed everywhere. Right in the middle of the message was sort of, they're using our weapons and we make the best weapons. It's like there was a sales pitch in the middle of Donald Trump's truth post. And
it's like America sell you weapons, and the only requirement is you must use them regularly.
And be seen to be using them. And anyway, no. So we've sent this delegation to the Paris arms bazaar. And last year they wanted to ban us, and this year they I think after court action last year, the French court said no, you can't exclude the Jews. It's not a good look. So we sent all our Israeli aircraft industries and all of the best guys, and that's also probably why we revealed that we've been using a laser weapon against drones for months, because we want to sell it. We've got 3 versions that are on sale. Anyway. So they went there and they put up their beautiful stand with all of their latest stuff. And then apparently in the middle of the night last night, the French authorities came and put a black wall around parts of the exhibit because, and get this, what they've said is you're not allowed to show offensive weapons. And I don't think they mean weapons which will offend. I mean offensive weapons. What is it? Like it's a defense only show? Anyway, so they've put these black things on, and I can swear it's going to be like the Streisand effect. Now, I want to buy whatever's behind that black wall. It's nuts. Look, the world is a dangerous place. You've got Russia walking into Ukraine, and now 2 years later, and millions dead. How does it help Ukraine if they're going around the world begging to defend themselves? Israel knows that our enemies are there. They've always been there. They've never stopped trying to destroy us. Okay, we've signed agreements with Egypt. We've signed agreements with Jordan. We were in a state of war with Syria. We still are, actually, until we come to some arrangement with their new leader. We know we're going to have to defend ourselves always, and that's just that's what we are. I don't. We got into a position of being too dependent. It's not good. So we're going to back away from that, and I think America's going to not like that, but there's no other way to do it. We've got to be 100% as close to self-sufficient as we can. I don't think we're going to use their planes and so on. But the point is, when you do improve weapons the way we do, we become essential back to them. So we can live with that.
Can I finish off just on the political side? Bibi, the great survivor of Israeli politics. Of course, you hear stories that actually he orchestrated the whole 7th of October so he could stay in power.
No, let me just...
Okay, trying to go down that rabbit hole. I shouldn't have said it, sorry.
Oh, no. Let's just knock it on their head for 2 minutes. Because, look, on a serious point here, what you don't see in the West, in the rest of the world, is the unbelievable. It's like we speak Hebrew here, and I'm on the fringes of that. I don't understand it very, very well, but I understand it enough. There has been so much introspection on how October 7th happened, on the mistakes made, on especially, and you have to understand the difference between the Shin Bet, the also called they've got so many names, it's ridiculous, but it's just Shin Bet, 2 letters, the Shabak or the Shin Bet, because the Shin Bet is an abbreviation of Shabak, but it's the same number of syllables. The internal, and they're the Fauda guys, really. Okay, Fauda. So if we've got 2 TV programs, we've got Fauda and we've got Tehran. Okay, the Tehran guys, that's the Mossad. Hezbollah pages, that's the Mossad. This Iran operation, that's the Mossad. Shin Bet was responsible for the occupied Palestinian territories, Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. And when we pulled out of Gaza in 2005, apparently the Shin Bet just stopped bothering to infiltrate, or they said it was too difficult, or whatever. They just looked the other way. And the guys running it were total lefties who thought that settlers were the biggest problem on earth. They spent all of their energy trying to work out how they could arrest settlers, Jewish settlers, and they just weren't looking at Gaza. And they thought that the Gazans are going to get richer, and as they get richer, they're going to get less obstreperous, and they're going to not want to kill us so much. And they just took their eyes off the ball. And we had things like the Black Lives Matter thing, which was used by the Gazans to do protests, and the protests put them up against the fence, which was probing, it was testing, it was making it that they could come within a kilometer of the fence and they wouldn't get shot. We dropped the ball massively. And to say that it was done deliberately, it completely falls apart as soon as you start to hear a tenth of what has come out in the Hebrew press about that event.
Yeah.
Bugbear.
No, it's important because we don't get to hear, and we kind of think you guys are so crap at doing what you're doing. Where has Israel gone? But then when we've seen the last 20 months, we've seen
and
Israel
even then,
haven't.
Even the way that we pursued the war until now, and there's been a marked change since Bibi fired the old chief of staff and got a new one. We've got a new head in the army. We've still got a huge problem with Gary Taub and Mike Duran have a podcast called Israel Update. They go into some of the detail of the sort of left-right legalist problems that we have, the problem with our judiciary here. It mirrors America. We've got the same. I mean, the bullshit charges against Netanyahu. It mirrors what's going on with the lawfare against Trump. It mirrors it, and we've got a crazy woman that's the highest rank in the army, other than the head of the army, is a lawyer. who's telling the army what they can and can't shoot at. It's nuts. We have to dial it down. And she's taking stuff from the ICJ, which hates us, and using that to filter through what we're allowed to shoot at and what we can't do and how we should provide aid and how we can provide food. She's been the one forcing us to allow Hamas to take all of the food that went into Gaza, because she's made it so that the IDF literally is not allowed to hand out food. There's so much going on in the background that doesn't make it into any of the nuanced coverage, and you can't rely on things like the New York Slimes or CNN to cover any of this, because ideologically they're on the wrong side of the fight too.
Is the last thing on the political and the media side kind of together, but is the feeling at long last we've done something about Iran and we're going to remove that, or is it we're sick of this, we've been 20 months into this just, can someone just sign some peace deal and make it end?
I think no. Listen, apart from the hostages, which we haven't mentioned, and is an enormous weight on all of us, I think we know that we have no choice but to fight. We have to get the hostages back. The level of, I must say, the level of care that we have for what goes on in Gaza is minimal, other than getting the hostages back. We don't care what kind of condition we leave the place in. And frankly, you might get 100 people on a protest in Tel Aviv talking about it, and that's literally everybody. It doesn't matter. We just want our hostages back, and we don't want our kids dying there. I don't want to send my kids to die in Gaza. It's in booby-trapped buildings. And in fact, the fight that we just had was four soldiers were killed a week and a half ago in a building that they were exploring. And the chief of staff has now come out and said, we don't care. We're just going to drop buildings now, and you can ask us questions later. We don't care. But it's because of this attorney at the top of the army, is brigadier general, I think is the rank. No, we don't want our kids risking themselves overtly to save buildings in Gaza. Who cares? But Iran, look, the other thing is, again, the West is traumatized by these weapons of mass destruction cannot be found. The whole way that the Iraq war was entered into. I think not just Bibi, but again, and this is the other thing that doesn't come across about Israeli society. Obviously, we're good enough at operational security, but we're actually terrible at other levels of security. Everybody knows somebody who tells them something and the thing is, you learn to judge the credibility of sources. One of the kids, I know a guy who worked on Arrow. He used to tell me about how they were testing it in Alaska. Now, none of that was, I guess, technically, some of it was classified. But when he tells me, and he was an air traffic controller during some of the earlier wars, he tells me about this stuff. Everybody knows everybody. And so enough people believe that if Bibi stands there and says they really are close to getting a nuclear weapon, we don't have a severe doubt, because we can all call up someone else who says, yeah, balance of probabilities, it really does look like that. So we it's not that we're a very trusting society, but we're closer to all of it because we're all deeply involved. I mean, we're involved in the retaliation. We can't go bomb Iran when we get a message at 3:00 in the morning because our phone just went bananas. And it wakes you up and you're bleary-eyed and you're trying to focus, you're finding the right glasses. I don't think to myself, oh my God, they're engaging in an unwanted foreign war and this is terrible and stop sending us arms. And I don't think that. I think, wow, there must be a really good reason why we're going to do this now. And there is.
Yeah. Well, Bran, I really appreciate you giving an update. You're there in the middle of 4 days in to this latest part of this.
This feels like a month already. I swear. this one has it's nothing, but it has been every single night. We have not had a night now. It's like having a newborn baby again. It's terrible.
Well, I think eventually they'll just be firing goats at you when they run out of missiles. So who knows where it becomes rocket propelled goats or something. But no, I really appreciate it. It's a huge situation, and you seem to be doing the world a favor. And having the green light, I think, for the US, that also is very beneficial. And the difference in public and private conversation. So yeah, it's fascinating, it's intriguing, but also you're fighting for your survival. So you see it obviously very real and raw. But always appreciate you coming on, Brian. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure. Thank you. And, regards to all your audience, and thanks for all the support, because the support that we get, when people, I just posted about my brother and sister-in-law's building, and I was seeing a lot of, I get the odd die Zio-Nazi stuff, but thank you very much to most of you who are decent people who understand what we're doing.